Imagine a classroom, wooden desks, the smell of chalk dust and cold air. A teacher reads names from a list, loud, clear, confident. Every student answers, except one. That one boy sits very still, looking at the window. Not because he is lazy, not because he does not care. He is watching dust move in a line of sunlight. And he is asking a question that no one in that room has ever thought to ask. What would it feel like to ride on a beam of light? That boy is Albert Einstein. And that question, quiet, strange, born in a classroom where he was already invisible, will one day change everything we know about time, space, and the universe itself. But here is the thing. Before any of that happens, he will fail. Publicly. Repeatedly. And the people who are supposed to see his talent will be the ones who miss it most completely. Albert Einstein was born in Ulm, Germany, in 1879. He was a slow child, at least that is what everyone thought. He did not speak his first full sentence until he was almost 3 years old. His parents were quietly afraid. His grandmother, the first time she saw him, whispered that he was too heavy, too slow. She did not mean his body. She meant his mind. His father was a warm man, an engineer who carried a small compass in his pocket. One afternoon, when Albert was 5 years old, his father showed him that compass. He placed it in the boy's small hand and said nothing. Albert looked at the needle. It trembled. It pointed. No matter how he turned the compass, left, right, upside down, the needle always found the same direction. Always north. Think about that for a moment. A needle inside a closed case, with no strings, no wires, no hands touching it, and something invisible was moving it. Something real but impossible to see. Albert could not eat that evening. He could not sleep. Something in him had broken open in the best possible way. He later called this his first great wonder. And wonder for Einstein was never a small thing. It was a compass of its own. He was a different kind of child. He played alone for hours, building tall towers of cards. So tall, so careful, that he would rebuild them 14, 15 times if they fell. He did not get angry. He simply started again. Patience, quiet intensity. These were already his tools, even before he knew what they were for. But school was a different world. German schools in the 1880s were strict, almost military. Teachers expected immediate answers, perfect obedience, quick thinking. Albert was none of those things. He was slow to respond. He often looked away. One teacher told him directly, "You will never amount to anything." He was 15 when he heard those words. 15 years old. Can you imagine? Someone whose job is to build young minds, and those are the words he chooses. Albert left that school before finishing. He did not graduate. He moved to Switzerland and tried to enter the Zurich Polytechnic, one of the best technical universities in Europe. He failed the entrance exam. Not in everything. His mathematics and physics scores were exceptional. But his French, botany, and zoology scores were too low. He was rejected. He was 16 years old, without a diploma, without a place in a university, living in a country where he barely spoke the language. He spent one more year preparing. He passed the second time. He entered the Polytechnic in 1896. And here is where we might expect the story to change. Finally, inside the university, surely the teachers would see him now. Surely the institution would recognize what was in him. It did not. His professors found him difficult. He skipped lectures he found too simple. He asked questions that made teachers uncomfortable. Not because the questions were wrong, but because no one had a good answer. One professor, Heinrich Weber, told him plainly, "You are a clever fellow, Einstein, but you have one great fault. You will not let yourself be told anything." He graduated in 1900, fourth in a class of 5. His classmates received academic recommendations from their professors. Einstein received none. While his friends found university jobs, teaching positions, research roles, Einstein found nothing. He applied for job after job. He sent letters. He asked for recommendations. He was rejected every time. For 2 years after graduation, Albert Einstein, one of the greatest minds in human history, could not find a single academic job. He tutored children privately. He barely earned enough to eat. If you have ever sent an application and heard nothing back, if you have ever felt completely invisible to people who should see your value, then you already understand something about this part of Einstein's life. Not the genius part. The quiet, exhausting, daily part of continuing when nothing confirms that you should. Then a friend helped him get a small job. In 1902, Einstein became a clerk, an office worker, at the patent office in Bern, Switzerland. His job was to read other people's invention ideas and decide if they were original. He was good at it. He was fast. And this left him something precious, time to think. The patent office was his hidden laboratory. Not a real laboratory. No equipment, no colleagues, no budget. Just a desk, a mind, and hour after hour of quiet. He would hide his personal notebooks under the office papers when the supervisor walked past. He was doing physics in secret, in the in-between moments of a regular working day. And here's the thing. Something about that freedom, that absence of academic pressure, that distance from the institutions that had rejected him, may have been exactly what his mind needed. If you're enjoying this story and you haven't subscribed yet, now is a good moment. These are the stories that don't usually get told in textbooks, the long, slow, invisible years before the extraordinary ones. He was 26 years old. The year was 1905. He was still just an office worker. He had no university title, no laboratory, no academic position. And in that one single year, Albert Einstein published 4 scientific papers, each one important enough to build an entire career on. Together, they did not just answer questions. They made the questions people had been asking for 200 years suddenly obsolete, no longer relevant, no longer the right questions at all. One paper explained that something called Brownian motion, the way tiny particles seem to move randomly in water. He proved that atoms, particles so small no one had ever seen one, were real. Scientists had argued about this for decades. Einstein settled it with mathematics done at a patent office desk. Another paper changed how we understand light. Light, he said, does not just travel in waves. It also comes in small packets, pieces of energy. He called them quanta, a word from Latin meaning how much. This idea would eventually build the foundation of quantum physics, the science that explains how everything at the smallest level works, from your phone screen to medical X-rays. A third paper, the one that made him famous, introduced something called special relativity. It said that time and space are not fixed. They are not the same for everyone. Time moves differently depending on how fast you are moving. Speed changes time. This was not a metaphor. It was not a feeling. It was mathematics. It was real. The universe, Einstein was saying, is stranger and more beautiful than we ever imagined. And then, in that same year, almost casually, he added one more equation: 5 symbols. Perhaps the most famous 5 symbols in all of science. E equals mc squared. Energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. Every piece of matter, your hand, a stone, a grain of sand, contains an almost unimaginable amount of energy locked inside it. Mass and energy are the same thing, expressed differently. He sent these papers to a physics journal. He was a 26-year-old clerk. He had no PhD at the time. He had no supervisor. He had no institutional address to put on the envelope, just a home address in Bern. The world took a little time to understand what it had received, but it understood. Before we reach the end, drop a comment below. What question would you have asked, sitting at that desk in the patent office, with hours of silence and a hidden notebook? By 1909, Einstein finally received a university position, 7 years after graduating. By 1915, he published his general theory of relativity. Going further, gravity itself, he said, is not a force pulling objects together. It is a bending of space and time. Massive objects, stars, planets, curve the space around them, the way a heavy object curves a stretched piece of fabric. Other objects move along those curves. What we feel as gravity is actually the shape of the universe. In 1919, scientists measured the light from stars during a solar eclipse, a moment when the moon covers the sun and nearby stars become visible. They found that starlight bent as it passed close to the sun, exactly as Einstein's equations predicted. Newspapers around the world ran the story. A British expedition had confirmed the theory of a German physicist. After the First World War, this felt like something almost miraculous, science crossing the boundaries that war had tried to make permanent. He became the most famous scientist in the world almost overnight. And yet, and this is important, Einstein never stopped being the boy with the compass. He kept asking questions that made people uncomfortable. He resisted parts of quantum physics that felt incomplete to him. He said famously that he could not believe God plays dice, meaning he could not accept that the universe was, at its deepest level, random. He may have been wrong about that particular question. Many physicists think he was. He spent the last decades of his life working on a problem he never solved. He was not always right. He was not always easy. He was sometimes stubborn in ways that closed doors instead of opening them. But here is the image I want to leave with you. Not the famous photograph. The one where his white hair is wild and his tongue is out. The one that turned him into a symbol, a poster, a cartoon of genius. Forget that image. Instead, a young man at a desk in a government office in Bern. Papers around him. Other people's inventions. Other people's ideas. A notebook hidden underneath. Outside the window, ordinary life, moving at ordinary speed. And inside his mind, light. Light stretching across space. A clock on a moving train. A man falling in an elevator and feeling, for one moment, weightless. He is not a genius who appeared from nowhere. He is a person who was told he would amount to nothing, and who kept asking his question anyway. The one about the light. The one that began in a cold classroom, watching dust move in a sunbeam. The question did not care that he had failed his entrance exam. The question did not care that no professor would recommend him. The question did not care that he was hiding his notebook under patent papers. Questions like that never do. And if you are someone who has been told that your questions are too slow, too strange, too much, if you are learning something difficult right now in a language that is not yet fully yours, then maybe this is the part of Einstein's story that belongs to you. Not the equations, not the Nobel Prize, the notebook under the papers, the needle that always finds north. That is enough. That has always been enough. And on the days when it does not feel like enough, when the rejection is fresh, when the language is hard, when the classroom feels like a place built for someone else, remember that the universe was rewritten by a man who could not get a teaching job, who hid his best thinking under someone else's paperwork, who asked a question at age 5 and did not stop asking it until the answer rearranged the stars.